remember reading Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, and while I was reading it, I was thinking, this is really only going to convince people that already agree with you. It's not really got a lot of meat to it for a Christian like me. And I found that with the teals that I was engaging with, it seemed like they were only really there to lobby together people who already agreed with those three issues and thought that there was nothing else in the world to worry about. And so when I was asking about education, they really, I mean, I didn't get anything back from them. They weren't really interested in talking to me, even though I'm one of the voters of their electorate.
That's a really good observation that I think probably, it speaks to the fact that they probably pre-identified, because they pre-identified the issues, they probably pre-identified also that they had enough. The numbers were there. So all you needed to do from that marketing perspective was go out and give people the product, right? I mean, we said that in the Liberal Democrats. I mean, people are crying out for a centre-right party. The Liberals have let them down, right? They want a more conservative approach. They want freedom on the top of the agenda, not at the bottom of the agenda. They want people who are going to speak out against the climate change hysteria, not denying climate change, but at least saying, maybe it's not all man-made, maybe there's a limit to what we can do to fix it, and maybe, destroying ourselves on an energy front and a security front is not a good way to go about it. But we were unable to kind of get, I think, a clear package together around that. That side of politics we were a little too fragmented. And instead of focusing on the things we united on, the Liberal Democrats in particular is a pretty fragmented, broad church, maybe a little too broad, which is why I'm no longer a member. But it's just important that I think that we look at what they did. And I think what they did was very clearly define what they were and that gap in the market. And you're right. Once you know, there's no need, for Tim Tams to argue why they're better than Oreos. They're there, and that's what people want, and people will buy Tim Tams, right? It's only a negative if I engage with Oreo. I'm only elevating Oreo to my brand level, right, by engaging it. So, they knew what they were going after, and they got it, and it was enough to get them over the line in quite a dramatic way.
So back to
what shocked me about Brizzy, though, was the Greens, mate, because I didn't think, I mean, if you look at the three Greens that got up in Brisbane, so we had the candidate for the electorate of Brisbane was a young fella who wasn't expected to get up. He was just a young supermarket worker. I can't recall his name, but anyway, he's now the member for Brisbane. The member for Griffith, which is sort of the inner woke part of Brisbane, the West End sort of, which is our equivalent of Collingwood, Fitzroy, Surrey Hills, Sydney, Newtown, the traditional sort of green area. So he got in, which was kind of expected, but he was also a young guy, but more of a political operative and a sharper sort of more experienced, I guess. But then the candidate in Ryan, in my area, which is a little bit more of a leafy, sort of Kew, South Yarra, I guess, sort of, neutral bay kind of area. She was a classic teal. Right. So she was a teal from Central Casting, right? And she was running for the Greens. So professional woman of that age, with a high profile in the local community. She's an architect, local architect, Elizabeth Watson Brown. And the reason I ran was because I looked at her and I thought, oh my God, she's going to win. This is a blue ribbon Liberal seat, but she's going to win it. And the incumbent Liberal guy was one of these young Liberals, career politician, seat warmer people, I call them. And I think that's the three definitions, the three things that the Liberal Party's got to clear out for it's ever going to be, strong again. They've got to get rid of young Liberals with a career politician mindset, and they've got to get rid of the seat warmers who've lost many elections and are very happy to sit in opposition, taking big fat paychecks, rather than being in government where they'd have to do some work. And believe me, they exist. So, those things are the problem with the Liberal Party. Anyway, I just said to this guy who was the incumbent here, mate, you're going to lose. Like, you realise you're going to lose. And he's like, oh, no way. No, he had, and I truly believe he had wasn't just giving me the line. I truly believe he thought right up until probably 3 weeks out that he was a shoo-in because he had a 6% swing was required. I expected to get about 5, maybe 4%. I was hoping for 4 because that's the cutoff that gets you the funding. You get, a lot of people don't know this, you get $1.90, or is it? No, $2.90. Sorry, it's almost $3 a vote. $2.90 for every vote you get, but not if you get under 4%. So that stops, ostensibly that's to stop all the minor people going, oh, I'll have a crack and get 50 votes and get a few bucks. But really, I think what it is to protect the major parties or make sure that they get well funded. So we only got 2.6%, which that was a bit of a shock. I did expect to lose, but I didn't expect to lose. Sorry, when I say expected to lose, I didn't expect to get more than 5%, but too much. But I did expect to sort of get close to the 5%, and I certainly was hoping to get over 4, because it cost me not doing so. But it was, it was kind of, looking back at it, you look at it and go, okay, well, I beat One Nation and I beat Clive Palmer. Right now, Clive has a lot of money, and One Nation has a known brand, and I was pretty much a nobody. Really, I had small media profile in Brisbane before I went overseas 20 years ago, but nobody knows me from a bar of soap here now. I'm running in a green electorate, so there aren't too many people who watch The Other Side or any, or Discernible or your podcast or anything, and so I'm a complete unknown. I'm working with an unknown party brand. That's got a confused brand and hasn't really got a clearly defined sort of values core, and we're really up against it, and I was able to beat the other 2 freedom-friendly minor parties, which was nice. So I sort of take that as a bit of a pat on the back, but it was a shock, and it was a bit of a blow that we didn't do more. But it was really the morning of election day. I spent 2 weeks standing in the rain. It rained for 2 weeks solid, doing the pre-polling booth outside a little church here in the suburb of Indooroopilly, and with all the other candidates, right, and the thousands of Greens that supported the Greens, and it was pretty messy. And it was there was a bit of a Green feeling like, oh wow, the Greens really are going to win this. They could win this. But boy, election morning was a totally different thing. Like we sent out, we had a pretty good bunch of volunteers, and so we were able to cover a lot of booths, which for a minor party is unusual. And I think it's why we did as well as we did. But we got a lot of people out, and David, my campaign manager, and I were driving around to all the booths as you do on election day, and talking to everybody, meeting people, doing half an hour at each booth. And every single one we went to, every volunteer said, "Oh my God, it's so green. I didn't realize how green it is," right? And they weren't just talking about the youth vote. It was right through and pretty scary stuff. So she ended up getting 30.2% of the primary vote, up from 20 at the last election. So, I don't like being right in this case, but I was right that she was going to romp it in. And that was enough to get her above the Labor guy, who was actually quite a good candidate, I thought. He was pretty nice to me on the trail. That got he had 25%, I think, from the previous election. So she surpassed him, which means then most of his preferences went to her, and that was enough to get her over I think the incumbent LNP guy had 37 or 38% in the end. So she was well over. In a primary, he had that primary. So when they did our preferences flowed up to him mainly, and so did the other freedom-friendly minor parties. But it was, I think in the end she had on the 2-party preferred about 54% against his 46. So it was a clear win.